Good evening, and thank you all for joining tonight's North Jersey Regional Public Hearing. My name is Charles Barker, and joining me is Commissioner Krista Nash. Tonight will be the third installment of our first round of public hearings. And I want to remind everyone listening that we will host another round of public hearings, likely in January, and more details will be coming soon. Quick housekeeping update. Commissioner Nash is on vocal rest and continues to recover. And so she may just be providing closing remarks, and we thank you in advance for understanding. Next slide, please. Some of you have been here before, and some of you may be joining us for the first time. And so tonight's public hearings are geared mainly for listening from you, the public. And so as you see on the agenda before you, you may hear some brief remarks from the executive director, and you may hear briefly about the statutory provisions guiding the excise fee, but mainly the majority and bulk of tonight's hearings are to hear from you, to hear how you believe tax revenue should be used for social equity investments, especially in communities that continue to bear the brunt of the failed war on drugs, and especially our Black and Brown communities. And so with that said, I'm going to turn the program over to our Executive Director, Jeff Brown, who will share some brief remarks. Director Brown.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Barker. Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Thank you to all the staff helping out with these hearings. So at the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, our mission is to establish and grow a responsible, regulated medicinal and recreational cannabis industry. We do that by applying our values of safety and equity, and we really try to center our work around creating and protecting access for patients, the production of safe products, and promoting diversity and inclusion in the industry. We also focus on equity outside of the cannabis industry. And the way we do that is by ensuring that tax revenues raised by the sale of cannabis are appropriately dedicated to repairing communities, investments in people, and investments in improving lives around the state of New Jersey. We estimate that between 12 and 15% of New Jersey adults may use cannabis. So for 85% of the population, the sale of cannabis might be kind of irrelevant, but what is relevant is the fact that this will raise over the years hundreds of millions of dollars that can be invested in our state in improving other people's lives. So a good example of that is that in the fourth quarter of last fiscal year, the Social Equity Excise Fee raised around $200,000. The commission at our last meeting approved investment of about 1.9 million in a technical assistance program run by New Jersey's Business Action Center that will help aspiring entrepreneurs get into the industry. And in one of the first in the nation moves, have a specific component for people in the legacy market who want to transition to the legal market. So that's just the beginning. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. Thank you again to Commissioner Nash, Commissioner Barker for hosting these. Look forward to hearing from the community as to how these dollars should be invested in the future. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Brown. Well said. Before we get into the public comment period, we just want to go over briefly a bit of the background according to the CREAM Act, so you can better understand the process that we're guided by. And so according to the statute, the commission is charged with hosting at least 3 regional public hearings. You can move to the next slide on this one. The regional public hearings are to be in the north, central, and southern New Jersey areas. And so we had our South Jersey hearing Tuesday, Central Jersey yesterday, and now today we're closing out this first round in North Jersey. And again, the hearings are structured on hearing from you about how social equity investments are made. And at the end of the hearings, the commission, we compile the feedback, we review the comments, and then we draft a report that we share with the governor and the legislature. Next slide. The governor and the legislature then review the report and the legislature is charged with providing a list of recommendations to the commission for what investments should be made, who should receive those investments, and how much revenue should be allocated, as you can see in the slide before you. We, based on the last report that we shared with the governor and the legislature, we just wanted to compile a list of common themes that we heard from the public. And not surprisingly, economic development and justice reinvestment were some of the highlights that we heard for how tax revenue should be spent. And as you heard from Director Brown, we have started that process by committing some tax revenue for our technical assistance program that we hope will be a groundbreaking, first of its kind in the nation program for technical assistance that provides a host of services to onboard prospective applicants. At the same time, we did hear you loud and clear, and we did include in our report that no money should be used for law enforcement programs, while also emphasizing the need to use tax revenue to reinvest in reentry support services. Next slide, please. Two more common themes that the public raised loud and clear and that we reported were public health concerns, expanding healthcare services, mental health and harm reduction programs. We heard yesterday about the need for Black maternal healthcare centers and other harm reduction programs, and we want to continue and hope that you continue to expand on that when we hear from you later this evening. Workforce development and education. That was another common theme that we heard, that tax revenue should be used to develop dynamic workforces, not only for plant touching opportunities, but for ancillary opportunities, and how we need to educate, provide education, especially for our youth, and also provide programs and rec services for our youth to keep them in constructive programs that enrich them. Next slide, please. And so just a quick recap here, the CRC has been operating for just over 18 months since Governor Murphy signed the CREAM Act into law in February 2021. I think an important note here is that our upcoming revised rules may expand upon the different license types. And so as we open up opportunities for wholesale licenses, distribution licenses, and delivery licenses, we hope that that would also increase the pool of tax revenue that we can use for social equity investments. And with that said, we are still guided by social equity, and you can refer to our website and or the QR code before you for the specific priority designations and how that speaks to the diverse cannabis industry that we want to develop. Next slide, please. Quick market update. The CRC has received over 1,300 applications and issued just over 800 licenses. Based on our third quarter tax revenue received, just over $7.7 million in tax revenue. That brings us to a total since April of about $11.9 million in tax revenue. We also are currently calculating our total social equity excise fee revenue and hope to report that soon. Of important note on that slide is also the fact that as we continue to expand opportunities for annual license awards and conversion applicants, in addition to the ATCs, our medicinal operators that can begin to sell personal use cannabis, we are hopeful and excited that that will also increase cannabis sales and increase tax revenue that we can use for social equity investments. And so you may be asking yourself, where is that money going? Where is that $11.9 million going? And who is responsible for allocating it? And that's a fair question. And so the statute establishes a CREAM fund where almost all tax revenue shall be deposited. Next slide, please. Next slide also. Listed here are a list of different provisions that the legislature is to be guided by when appropriating tax revenue. Just want to highlight a few of these. Importantly, at least 70%, no less than 70% of all tax revenue is to be used for investments in impact zones. Now, impact zones are areas throughout New Jersey that the legislature specified and identified as communities that have been historically devastated from the impact of the failed war on drugs. And we just want, we are confident, and we just want to stress that it's imperative that the hardest hit communities, the hardest hit impact zones are prioritized with this 70% of funding. 15% should be used for the Underage Deterrence and Prevention Fund. That just evidences our commitment to provide educational services and safety programming for our children. Direct financial assistance to qualifying persons. We heard yesterday about universal basic income and other guaranteed income programs. And so this is an example of a direct financial assistance that the legislature can determine and use tax revenue for. Next slide, please. And so in addition to statutory provisions through a social equity lens, and in addition to rules established, the CRC had the option and decided it was imperative that we establish a social equity excise fee to further our restorative justice efforts. The fee is imposed on cannabis cultivators. Important note here, it's imposed on personal use cultivators, not medicinal cultivators, not medicinal use cultivators, and is based on the sale of usable cannabis to any other cannabis establishment other than cannabis cultivators. The fee is 1/3 of 1% of the state retail price per ounce. And so currently our excise fee is $1.10 based on a previous average retail price of cannabis of about $323. As of August 1st, 2022, the average retail price of cannabis here in New Jersey was about $455. And so using that number times 1/3 of 1%, our new excise fee for 2023 is going to be $1.52 per ounce. The statute provides a scale for the CRC to adjust the fee as the cost of cannabis increases or decreases, and is to be done in an equitable manner. Next slide. And as with almost all tax revenue, CEF funds shall be used for social equity investments. And so the focus of tax revenue, again, is for social equity investments in people and communities hardest hit by the failed war on drugs. And we just, cannot stress that enough. And so before you are just a few program examples and potential investments that can help guide your thinking, and just to help give you some ideas about what can be done in your community in North Jersey. We already have seen, and Director Brown alluded to, the technical assistance programs, the job skill and readiness training programs. We have grant and loan programs and financial assistance programs that are currently being developed by NJEDA, and hopefully more information will be coming soon on that front. Workforce development and housing development, marketing services, also legal services. Next slide, please. We also have a host of educational support services underway here in New Jersey through our different institutions, mental health services. We cannot stress enough how important it is that we provide tax revenue, or we hear from you. We've heard through our previous hearings about how important it is, and we want to hear from you if it's something that we need to prioritize in North Jersey as well. And so now is where we turn the program over to you. We hope that you are motivated and encouraged to share what you envision can be helpful and beneficial in your community, again, tax revenue is to be used for social equity investments to restore our communities, to build them back. And so we hope to hear from you about your great ideas. And with that said, I'm going to turn the program over to Joanne Sidoti, who will go over the protocol for our public comment period.
Good evening, everyone. As we begin our public comment period, I just want to go over a few guidelines to please be respectful on topic and do your best to keep it to 3 minutes or so. If you have already signed up, I will call your name, and as we go down the list, you'll be invited to speak. If you have not had a chance to sign up, we still welcome your comments when we finish the list. I'll ask you to use your raise hand feature on Zoom, and I'll call your name, and you will also be invited to speak. And first up is Vanessa Thomas. Vanessa, are you here? Okay, Erica Rodriguez. Erica. Edward Grimes. Diana McElroy. Precious Osagi Aris. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. Abigail Pearl. Abigail, I see you're here.
Yes, hi, thank you.
Welcome, go right ahead.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abigail Pearl, and I recently graduated from the University of San Francisco with my master's in nonprofit administration after completing my thesis titled The Nonprofit Sector in Cannabis Industry, Creating Cross-Sector Partnerships for a Sustainable and Equitable Future in New Jersey and Beyond. I commented on the October 27th meeting alluding to my research, but shifted my time to focus on the announcement made by Moni Willoughby as the executive director of the Business Action Center. I wanted to start today by expanding on those previous thoughts and touch on what Commissioner Barker discussed today. So for starters, I want to emphasize that there would be no cannabis industry without those legacy operators who built this industry from an illegal market. It's really interesting to see the $1.9 million already dedicated to the Business Action Center. I would really like to see what that money would be going towards. But continuing on, I think that there is a big disconnect right now between the New Jersey CRC and the Department of State trying to push these licensing opportunities while people are struggling to be able to hold these licenses. I think that that is a little harmful, and I would hope that what the Business Action Center would to be able to expand on this opportunities for starters. I would also like to touch on the fact that there wasn't really a mention of nonprofit grants with this money to be allocated towards. I would really like to see this money be allocated towards nonprofit grants. There's nonprofits, grassroots nonprofits that have been operating within the state of New Jersey to fight social equity in the cannabis industry in this state. And they have made great strides, Minority Cannabis Academy being one, Cannademics, which is going to be a 501c3 soon. Nonprofits are truly the backbone of social equity within any industry. So I think investing in those nonprofits would be a great way to allocate that tax money. You touch on mental health services, a lot of them also being nonprofits. So again, would just really love to see grant opportunities for these nonprofits. In my research, I really allude to the fact that nonprofits are enriching of not only social equity, but very helpful cross-sector partnerships, and with the right support, and use of this tax money for supporting these nonprofits can really help bridge the gap between social equity that we see today and all the issues that have been touched on in previous meetings and today. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Next up, we have Ray Chavez. Ray Chavez. Dana Mondadori Patton. Dana Mondadori Patton. Edwin Chino Ortiz. Edwin, I definitely saw your name on the list.
Okay, you hear me? Can you hear me?
You. Go right ahead. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Edwin Chino Ortiz. I'm the founder of the Returning Citizen Support Group, which is a grassroots organization that was started in Essex County and Newark to assist men and women returning back from the carceral system. RCSG, we plan on partnering with the legacy operators and formerly incarcerated entrepreneurs who have been harmed by the war on drugs to ensure they have a pathway into the legacy industry. Through our partnership with the local partners, including the Greater Newark Conservancy and Rutgers, RCSG plans to deliver workforce training programs for the following: cultivation, bud tending, edible infused product development. In line with RCSG's existing model programming, we plan to deliver a fellowship program for justice impacted individuals to successfully navigate the cannabis industry with the following components: workforce development training, mentorship and broader cannabis community integration, networking opportunities, career opportunities with the Newark-based entertainment companies. We intend to partner with the state of New Jersey and the Cannabis Control Board to ensure that those who have been most harmed are well positioned to participate in the new economy. With that being said, as I stated, we're a grassroots organization, and we are basically operating with very little funds. So we want to know, how can we tap into this this money that's being tax money that's generated from this cannabis industry. But also we want to see a separate track created so that there are grants available to justice impacted men and women so that they can secure grants to apply for licenses and get into the legacy business. Also, one of the most difficult components for men and women coming home is housing, right? So we want to see some of that money put aside to help those mostly affected by the war on drugs become homeowners, creating a program for housing for men and women coming home to become homeowners. And that's basically it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Edwin. Next is Yannick Wood. Yannick Wood.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Good evening. My name is Yannick Wood. I represent New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. The Institute requests that the new NJCRC invest the social equity tax revenue from cannabis legalization into the following. Cannabis revenues can fund a baby bonds program. A proposed state bill would establish this program, which would give low-income newborns a savings endowment that they will be able to use for a financial head start. By giving low-income youth who are disproportionately people of color a financial endowment that they can access at age 18, this program would help level the playing field and target the state's staggering racial wealth gap. Number two, revenues can be used to create a targeted guaranteed basic income program that creates income stability for the most economically vulnerable people in our state. research shows that basic income benefits are largely used to cover basic living expenses like food and utilities. Building on pilot programs in Newark and Patterson, a statewide guaranteed income program, as California has, would help economically vulnerable New Jerseyans weather the uncertainties created by an increasingly volatile economy. Number three, revenues can fund youth services and programs to prevent youth from entering the justice system in the first place, while also helping justice-involved youth re-enter their communities with the skills necessary to thrive. Cannabis revenues can be used to expand the restorative and transformative justice for youth and communities pilot program and similar programs statewide. And revenues can also address critical gaps in youth mental health programs, including long wait times for counseling appointments, lack of technology access for virtual appointments, and more telehealth lines for mental health issues, all regardless of health insurance status. Number four, funds should be used to invest into community-based public safety programs, such as anti-violence programs that have been successful in decreasing violence while providing treatment that meets the actual needs of community members. It could be used to fund statewide expansion of mental or behavioral health first responder pilot programs, which send clinically trained professionals rather than armed police officers to treat those in need. And lastly, number five, cannabis funds can help our democracy, and in particular, they can make access to the ballot easier for Black and Brown communities. In 2020, all people on parole and probation had their right to vote restored in New Jersey, a right denied since 1844. However, many remain unregistered, likely because they are unaware that their rights have been restored. So New Jersey should invest in a public education and registration campaign to address this issue. Pursuant to state law, the funds can be invested into expanding automatic voter registration, AVR for short, to the Department of Corrections and to the State Parole Board, so that people in prison set to be released may register easily. New Jersey should also expand AVR to Medicaid. Medicaid involves over 1 million adults who are disproportionately Black and Latino. Many of these individuals may not have driver's licenses and therefore would not have registered through Motor Vehicle Commission. So I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for considering our ideas.
Thank you, Yannick. Next, we have Judy Ward. Judy Ward. Okay, Rich Kane. Rich Kane. Elise Richards. Elise Richards. Jacqueline Mascara. Jacqueline Mascara. Julia Haviland. Julia Haviland. Jillian Stoll. Jillian Stoll. Reynaldo Chavez. Reynaldo Chavez. Stephen Young. Stephen Young. Annette Tamarazzo. Annette Tamarazzo. Cord Schlobum. Cord Schlobum. Tiffany Fisher. Tiffany, you're definitely here. I see your name.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go right ahead.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. My name is Tiffany Fisher, and I am a city council person in Hoboken, New Jersey. We're in the process right now going through the local approvals for our local cannabis market. I want to thank you for having these hearings. Love the fact that you're soliciting input from the public, and just have loved listening to all the ideas from everyone else who spoke tonight. A couple of things, I guess some questions and general ideas. One is, I think when I think of the people that have been most impacted in just general social equity, I think the two things that are most needed are jobs and housing. In Hoboken in particular, a lot of people feel as though Hoboken's a wealthy community, which it is, but we have the Hoboken Housing Authority. We have a number of people that have lived in Hoboken a very long time that just really are on the cusp of potentially being displaced. And we have a huge need for affordable housing, whether it is new built affordable housing, additional Section 8 vouchers, or just investment in our housing authority that we're in the process of redeveloping. And so hopefully we'll see an opportunity to have money invested in all communities around housing in particular. As it relates to jobs, I think all of the workforce training ideas are fantastic. Listening to some of the people tonight talk about people that were convicted of cannabis related offenses that are now free and are struggling to find jobs. Half of it, or part of it, I know is the training, which I think is critical, but also it's on the hiring side. I know that it's still a challenge for people that have been incarcerated to come, and find opportunities, employers that are willing to hire people that have been previously incarcerated. So maybe there is an opportunity not just to invest in the people that need the training and need the opportunity, but also maybe to provide some sort of subsidy or support for or incentive for companies and organizations to hire some of these people to kind of bridge that that employee-employer gap. So one area in particular that we have in Hoboken that is a great form of financial support in our community, targeted at some of the lower income, more difficult areas of Hoboken, are the CDBG community development block grants. Not just the portion that invests in physical investments, but really the programmatic side. So to the couple speakers earlier that said, the backbone is really our nonprofit organizations that really do a lot of the like grassroots programs, very specifically targeted within communities, knowing exactly what is needed within the communities that they operate, providing, either an expansion of the CDBG program or way to target money to these local nonprofits, I think is a great idea. And lastly, if I can make this comment while we're here, because there was a slide on it, there's a lot of discussion about opportunities for people that have been discriminated against or disproportionately negatively impacted by the legacy cannabis industry, and figuring out ways for them to really take a big part in this new industry. I would like to see maybe a relook at what the requirements are for the diversity owned businesses. What we're seeing, and we have examples in Hoboken, is in Jersey City as well, where we're seeing people that check certain boxes are being identified as a business owner, when the reality is they're just being put there to get priority status. And what's behind these applications are, like one in Hoboken is one of the largest, institutional owners of dispensaries in the United States, all white, all male, but they're hiding behind, a local Latina young female, as, listed as one of the owners. And I would hope that the CRC actually could do maybe a little bit more, or somehow make that definition a little bit more robust to really make it more fair for the people that this whole CREAM Act is really intended to help. So anyway, just thank you. Loved everything that's been on all the slides. I think already you're clearly in the right direction. So thank you. Oh, one last thing, sorry. A place like Hoboken that may not be an impact zone, we're also in Jersey City as well. We're both areas that are probably going to generate, ultimately, when this is a more stable or stabilized industry, I would say the bulk or a lot of the revenues for the state. And I would just hope that the communities that will be hosting and creating a lot of these revenues will, even if they're not necessarily in an impact zone, there'll be a way to make sure that the dollars are channeled back into those same municipalities. So thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Next, we have Joanne Zito. Welcome, Joanne. I think you're still muted.
Hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the CRC for holding these hearings and taking into consideration the people's comments on how to best use funds from cannabis sales in New Jersey, especially for social equity. As someone harmed by the war on cannabis in New Jersey, I will say regarding social equity spending, we should reverse how money was shifted from communities and individuals harmed from them to law enforcement authorities. My education, employment, housing, mobility, health, wealth, and family stability were all negatively affected by cannabis arrests, all while the county, Bergen County, and the state required me to pay fees and fines associated with the arrests and imprisonments and punishments in order to be released from the court sanctions. While misdemeanor convictions were harmful, felony convictions, felony indictments were more devastating, and just being arrested had significant negative consequences, and especially for those with children or other dependents. Statistically, children of those who've been arrested or imprisoned are more likely to suffer negative health consequences. While punishments were hard for me, they were in some ways harder for my children. Despite a number of arrests causing me such issues throughout my life, technically I don't qualify for priority licensing in New Jersey, but even if I did, financially, I'm not in a position to participate in the industry. So like with expungement and priority licensing regulation, funds should be used to help support those who suffered these arrests, convictions, and imprisonments. To enter the cannabis industry with funds for education, property, legal fees, social support services, mentoring, business supplies, childcare, and including their dependents, not just in business, but support in all aspects. Like someone had said before, home ownership, like not being able to start a business. I also don't own a home. And mental health and well-being should also be supported. As a parent harmed by this prohibition, I agree with New York's Office of Cannabis Management to include dependents of those who suffered any marijuana conviction in their social equity applicant eligibility requirements. And I think it would be helpful for New Jersey to implement that in our regulations as well and use equity funds for that. And while I wouldn't want social equity money to go to pot for potholes, back when the state was just starting to talk about legalization, the pot for potholes was a slogan going around. And I could tell you, having an older car, having the roads be better for getting to work would be an improvement for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Next, we have Reverend Weldon McWilliams. Reverend McWilliams.
Greetings, greetings. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, great, great, great. Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for their words and their participation. My name is Pastor Weldon McWilliams. I'm the pastor of the Christ Temple Baptist Church located in Paterson, New Jersey. Also an affiliate and worker and a collaborator with Salvation and the organization Salvation and Social Justice. And I just wanted to speak to the notion of several things, but primarily the guaranteed income. I was on the Paterson, New Jersey task force to create and implement a guaranteed income pilot for Paterson, New Jersey, a city that is recognized also as an impact zone, a city that has and that currently and still suffers from disproportionate poverty, especially as it relates to its Black and Brown communities. And I believe that one of the ways that we can utilize the funds or the revenue from the cannabis is to create a guaranteed income. Lack of resources seems to happen all the time for residents of Paterson, in particular, the Black and Brown community. And, you know, this notion of giving our residents without any conditions, extra funds so that they can do things like get to the grocery store or have a little more groceries in their refrigerator or not have to choose between food and medicine. I think that a guaranteed income, as has been done in different cities across the country, this will help contribute to a decline in some of the other atrocities that we see in our city. I think it will also help contribute to curbing violence. I think one of the many reasons why we see violence in our community is that there's a competition of resources, and we need to ensure that the allocation of the profits that come from cannabis go towards really ensuring that the residents of Paterson and other impact zones are able to obtain resources. Also having these resources available to them. We need to also evaluate the education system, which New Jersey is seen as a state as having one of the best public school systems, but in cities like Paterson, it drags and lacks drastically. And we definitely need to make sure that our funds go towards education, not just the buildings, but the resources within education. Housing is a big issue. Rent is extremely high. It's slowly but surely pushing people out of Paterson and done in such a way with the hopes of bringing certain other peoples in. So I just definitely want to continue to promote this notion that we should use the funds for cannabis. We need to use that for guaranteed income to ensure that the residents have the ability to obtain resources for themselves. We just need to move in a direction where we can curb the disparities that we see, the wealth disparities that we see in cities that are designated as impact zones. So I just really want to advocate for a guaranteed income and advocate for a reevaluation of how the funds are used in our education, our school buildings, our school resources, even our curriculum, and also with housing. We want to ensure that our people are living in quality housing and that the rents that are being put out there are not rents that are set so that they can eventually move out and be pushed out and another group of people can be put in. So in the name of equity, in the name of restorative justice, I believe it should be a priority that the profits from cannabis be used in these ways. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Reverend McWilliams. Next, we have Karen E. Barnett. Karen Barnett.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you. I would be remiss if I did not begin with saying I'm not sure if it was intentional or unintentional, but CREAM is actually an acronym that the Wu-Tang Clan coined a number of years ago, which stands for Cash Rules Everything Around Me. The only difference between that and this is that this has an extra M in it, and I guess that stands for marijuana. But with that being said, I'm going to go right ahead and implore you to actually look up those lyrics to see how this process aligns with what was being said in those lyrics, but more importantly, how the conversation of social equity cannot be had without acknowledging that the social construct that is in place longitudinally has led to the process of us even having to have this conversation. But on a micro level, I would like to speak for the 1 in 8 teenagers who self-reported abusing an illicit substance in last year, and the 150 youth that required hospitalization because they ingested edibles or other toxicity of altered synthetic marijuana. But more importantly, speaking from the standpoint that the trends of reports of marijuana use in New Jersey rose from 70,000 youth between the ages of 12 to 17 to 78,000 youth in 2019. And we don't know what those numbers will look like now that people have the misinformation in reference to the legalization of marijuana. I'm speaking from 31 years of experience of doing prevention based on a clear no use message, complemented by the tenets of harm reduction as a recovery coach, and my expertise as practitioner of healing centered engagement, social emotional learning, executive functions, restorative practices, and trauma informed practices and strategies. The proliferation of negative social detriments, ACEs, and multifaceted traumas, and we're not just talking about violence, we're talking about housing insecurity, food insecurity, educational insecurity, healthcare insecurity, all of those negative social detriments that impact what you're calling impact zones. So that the actions that we make as pertains to investments that we make in the most at risk, most underserved, most disproportionately and marginalized communities of the highest priority to meet the goals of Healthy New Jersey 2030 and to scaffold and leverage current initiatives that are focused on birth to 3, early head start, fortifying families from inception through life by providing factual information that protect the health and futures of youth, and inquisitive emerging users. One of the slides that they talked about home ownership. They talked about reentry support services. They talked about Black maternal health programs, supportive youth programs. We really have to look at organizations that have the bandwidth to actually effectuate those programs, because all too often, much like with tobacco settlement dollars, the opioid settlement dollars, and Tiffany spoke about this also, those dollars don't actually go to effectuating change that actually reaches the need of the individuals who are most disproportionately affected by multiple negative detriments. Currently, the state of New Jersey has an excellent system in place already through the municipal alliances, which exist in every municipality, that can be a conduit into schools and communities. Too often we miss the opportunity to support existing services in addition to funding programs that are the equivalent of allowing the fox to watch the hen house. We can't put ourselves in a position where we're not looking at it's almost an oxymoron, almost eliminating the supply of individuals that want to use recreational marijuana. And that is what I hope we are doing in looking at birth to 4th grade. The pastor talked about the educational system. Yes, we do have one of the best educational systems in the country. However, BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous communities of color, are disproportionately not meeting proficiency in the educational levels. We have to look at strategic prevention framework and say, well, why in BIPOC communities? Why in BIPOC communities? Why in BIPOC communities? And if we roll that back, we will see it is because the narrative and the social construct of those communities through gentrification and other social constructs are developed to fail. What we can do in a micro format is to make sure that we have programs that specifically target students before grade 4, families from inception. We talked about Black maternal health. Let's make sure that we're funding the increase of doulas in impact communities so that the education as it pertains to marijuana, factual education, is part of this birthing education that those individuals receive, so that they're receiving quality information and can choose to change the narrative and reduce early access to marijuana, but more importantly, delay use, in addition to looking at harm reduction strategies that will say, if we can delay the use until after they're 21, most likely they're not going to start using it. So will that eventually impact dispensaries? I'm sure it will. However, the greater impact will be a better quality of life for the individuals that are in those impacted communities. So I thank you for allowing me to speak. I hope that you will infuse organizations that have the bandwidth, that begin with a consistent no use message. And again, that conduit are the municipal alliances. They've been doing it for over 30 years. And making sure that when you're funding programs, that it is a consistent no use message, and making sure that we have the opportunity to develop media programs that go into the school systems that are able to be disseminated through messaging that give actual and factual information about the negative impact on emerging minds and the body, educationally and physically, with the impact of cannabis and or marijuana use as a recreational activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. That actually concludes our entire list of those who had signed up in advance, but we want to open the floor to anyone who is present tonight who would like to speak. I just ask that if you could use the raise hand button on Zoom, and I will call your name and we would welcome your thoughts. So I'll just give everyone a second to find that button. I see a lot of names of those who are here but have not yet spoken. Anyone else? No volunteers? Going once? Going twice? All right, Commissioner Barker, I'm gonna pass it back over to you.
Thank you, Joanne, and thank you to all our speakers for those thoughtful comments. We definitely appreciate all comments, especially that hold us accountable. And so we appreciate what you shared with us this evening. I'm going to now turn it over to Commissioner Nash, who's going to close us out with some remarks.
Good evening. First, I want to thank Commissioner Barker for facilitating these hearings the past several days and this evening. I also want to thank all of you tonight that provided such meaningful commentary. It's very important. Last night, I touched on my previous work with the reentry program. And in our last hearings held in March, and over the past few nights, there were several comments about designating funds for reentry support programs. In my program, which was with a nonprofit, many would come from prison. They were on parole with nothing but a trash bag full of tattered clothes. The program provided supportive housing, mental health supports, links to healthcare, employment services, and much more. The recidivism rate was significantly lower than those that did not receive these services. So this is a measurable example of what works. And it not only helps the individuals, these men and women coming from prison, it helps their families and it helps their communities. So from someone who's been in the trenches with these men and women who experienced the trauma of incarceration and who had to rebuild their lives, I am really pleased to hear once again that there is a call to again designate funds for reentry support. So just wanted to say thank you for everyone for joining us this evening. Commissioner Barker.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. And again, thank you, public, for all of your comments. Please refer to our website and our different social media platforms. There will be more information forthcoming about our next round of public hearings. Thank you all again and have a great night. Take care.